Direct News TV. April 25, 2024. Israel's war on Gaza live, mass graves show evidence of torture, executions. The Palestinian Civil Defense says it will cooperate with an independent investigation into 3 separate mass graves containing 392 bodies. Demands for answers from Israeli leaders reverberate as the grisly effort to dig up corpses buried in Khan Yunis continues. France threatens new sanctions against Israeli settlers. Emmanuel Macron's office says France is considering extending sanctions on Israeli settlers behind violence against Palestinian civilians in the occupied West Bank after the Prime Minister spoke with Jordan's King Abdullah II. The two leaders firmly condemned recent Israeli announcements about settlements in the occupied West Bank, which are contrary to international law, Macron's office said in a statement. On February 28, extremist Israeli settlers were banned from entering French territory. Last week, the EU imposed sanctions on 4 Israeli settlers and 2 settler organizations for violence against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and Jerusalem. Since the start of the year, Israeli authorities have declared nearly 1,100 hectares, 2,720 acres, of the West Bank to be state land, twice as much as in the previous record year in 1999, according to the settlement watchdog Peace Now. To learn more about the Israeli settlers and why they live on Palestinian lands, you can read our in-depth explainer here. Or you can read about how Israeli settlers have been expanding illegal outposts during Israel's war on Gaza here. Palestinian PM thanks Germany for plans to reinstate UNRWA funding. Mohammed Mustafa says he appreciates Germany's announcement this week that it plans to resume funding for UNRWA, the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency. Germany had paused funding for the organization, which provides services to Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, and countries like Lebanon and Jordan, earlier this year, after the Israeli government accused it of complicity in the October 7 attacks. An independent review of the allegations by former French FM Catherine Colonna found that Israel had not provided significant evidence to back up its claims. How Gaza's children are preparing for Israel's invasion of Rafah. As an Israeli ground assault on Gaza's last safe zone looms, 2 children in Rafah brace for it. We're afraid people will resort to killing each other for food, 11-year-old Hussam says as he recounts his daily battle to secure basic necessities like food, water, and sanitation in Rafah during Israel's war on Gaza. Hussam is one of more than 600,000 children who have sought refuge in the city, the designated safe zone in southern Gaza. But since March, the Israeli government has threatened to extend a military invasion there, too, casting a shadow of fear that has been building for months. A person's psyche wears out with fear. It's a slow death, Hussam says as he reflects on what lies ahead. Israel places roadblock to delay Gaza Freedom Flotilla, Aid Coalition. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition, FFC, a movement composed of campaigns and initiatives working to end the Israeli blockade of Gaza, says its aid ship bound for the enclave has been delayed from leaving Turkey. The coalition said in a statement, all the required paperwork has been submitted to the Port Authority, and the cargo has been loaded and prepared for the trip to Gaza. However, today we received word of an administrative roadblock initiated by Israel in an attempt to prevent our departure. Israel is pressuring the Republic of Guinea-Bissau to withdraw its flag from our lead ship, Octnes Mediterranean. This triggered a request for an additional inspection, this one by the flag state, that delays our April 26 planned departure. The coalition said this was another example of Israel obstructing the delivery of life-saving aid to the people in Gaza who face a deliberately created famine, adding that it was not the first time Israel had used these kinds of tactics to stop our ships from sailing. Aid workers from 40 countries are due to deliver 5,000 tons of aid to Gaza using the Octnes. U.S. State Department Arabic spokesperson resigns in opposition to Gaza policy. The Arabic language spokesperson of the U.S. State Department has resigned, citing her opposition to Washington's policy related to Israel's war on Gaza. Halarid was also the Dubai Regional Media Hub's deputy director and joined the State Department almost 2 decades ago as a political and human rights officer, the department's website showed. She wrote on LinkedIn, "I resigned April 2024 after 18 years of distinguished service in opposition to the United States Gaza policy." Nearly a month earlier, Anneliese Leen of the State Department's Human Rights Bureau announced her resignation, and State Department official Josh Paul resigned in October. A senior official in the U.S. Education Department, Tariq Habash, who is Palestinian-American, had stepped down in January. Israeli military says it is providing CENTCOM with security, logistics for maritime aid initiative. The Israeli military says it has approved collaborative efforts for the Joint Logistics Over the Shore, JLOTS, initiative led by the United States Central Command, CENTCOM. It said it would provide security and logistics support for the JLOTS initiative, which includes a temporary floating pier to deliver humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. As we reported earlier, a United Nations team visiting the pier had to seek shelter in a bunker for some time yesterday after the area came under fire. Gaza's civil defense issues heat warning to displaced Palestinians. As temperatures soar in the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian Civil Defense has warned that conditions are ripe for the expansion of the spread of epidemics and diseases among displaced Palestinians, especially among children and pregnant women. Drink plenty of water, try to ventilate the place, keep children away from the sun's rays, especially at peak heat times, and be sure to wipe their bodies with cold water constantly, spokesperson Mahmoud Basil said in a statement on Telegram, speaking to the thousands of displaced Palestinians currently sheltering in tents. U.S. says Gaza aid pier construction has begun. Pentagon spokesperson Major General Patrick Ryder told reporters that construction of the pier, announced in March by U.S. President Joe Biden, has started. The pier will receive ships carrying desperately needed aid for the people of Gaza, thousands of whom are facing imminent famine. I can confirm that U.S. military vessels, to include the USNS Benavidez, have begun to construct the initial stages of the temporary pier and causeway at sea, Ryder told reporters. The UN has warned Gaza faces famine and has complained of overwhelming obstacles to getting aid into and distributing it around the enclave. Ryder said the Pentagon was tracking some type of mortar attack in Gaza that caused minimal damage in the staging area for the pier. The UN stated earlier today that one of its teams, inspecting the staging area, had to take cover for several hours when bombs struck nearby. Ryder added that U.S. forces had not started moving anything to that area yet and there were no U.S. forces on the ground. UN says mandate required to take custody of Gaza mass grave evidence. Stefan Dujarric, the spokesperson for the United Nations Secretary-General, told Al Jazeera's Kristen Saloomi during a press briefing that while the organization is collecting information on mass graves discovered at Nasser Hospital, a mandate is required from a UN legislative body in order to take custody of any evidence. We've called for an international investigation. How that will take place? It's unclear at this time. There are certain parts of this organization that have the authority to do that, Dujarric said. In the meantime, it's important that all forensic evidence be well preserved, he added. It is not anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas to point out number of Palestinians killed, wounded in Gaza, Sanders. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders has told Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, in a post on X, that it was not anti-Semitic or pro-Hamas to point out that in a little over 6 months, his extremist government has killed 34,000 Palestinians and wounded more than 77,000. In an attached statement, Sanders said his comments were in response to the Israeli Prime Minister's remarks yesterday that criticism of the Israeli government's policies was anti-Semitic. Mr. Netanyahu. Antisemitism is a vile and disgusting form of bigotry that has done unspeakable harm to many millions of people. But, please do not insult the intelligence of the American people by attempting to distract us from the immoral and illegal policies of your extremist and racist government, Sanders wrote in his closing remarks. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.